Good afternoon. This is Sassy Nyman, Vice President for Policy at Illinois Action for Children. Thanks for joining us today. We still have some folks who are joining, so I'm going to just give a couple more seconds so that everybody can get on the line. So we don't want to keep you long today, but we did absolutely want to touch base with our members around the critical time of year that we're in as it relates to budget. This happens every May. Every May is a crunch time. Every May, every session we hurry up and wait, and then suddenly we start to run out of time. And this year is unfortunately no different. But this year we have an added layer of urgency and kind of pending doom and gloom with our tax increase that was passed in 2011 that is set to expire, and on everything else that's going to happen in the budget cycle is really hinged on Illinois legislators extending or making permanent that tax increase to keep our current revenue levels at 5%. So let me back up and take us to the beginning of the story so that we're all on the same page, and all of you, our lead advocates across the state, really have a level of comfort so that you can go and talk to your legislators about this. You can talk to people in your community, and you can absolutely, if you're a program director, talk to your staff to help them understand what lies ahead and what can be done from every part of the state. So again, in 2011, the Illinois legislature passed if we remember back a couple of years ago, it was really the height of the recession. Unemployment was high. The revenues were, very, very low because people were not working. Tax revenues were low. Business revenues were low. And so we really saw an incredible ripple effect. And so in response to an increasing backlog of unpaid bills and significant cuts to programs and services across the state looming, the Illinois legislature passed a tax increase on the personal income tax to Illinois citizens from up to 5%. And so that, as part of the compromise of that bill, was to what we call put a sunset on it. Our goal, the original conversation was a much larger tax package that included both sales tax, income tax, and a number of other revenue generating sources. But what ended up, and it was meant to be a permanent, what ended up happening as a way to compromise and get it through the General Assembly at the time was that it really became a very standalone issue around personal income tax, and it also became an issue around not making it permanent, but instead making it a temporary tax. So let me just fix something on my screen here. Okay, sorry, technical difficulty. So, so as you can see on your screen, we'll start with what's about to happen in January of 2015 in front of us. So the tax increase that was passed in 2011, in fact, did pass with a sunset or an expiration date, and that expiration date is January 1st of 2015. So that rate increase in January will sunset at the end of this year, and it will reduce the current personal income tax from 5 to 3.75 for individuals. The expiration of that tax, or that tax rate, will create, at a minimum, a $2.4 billion hole in the FY15 budget, the budget that we are currently negotiating that will kick in July 1st of this year. So $2.4 billion that will be expenses that we had, programs that we pay for, but suddenly a huge part of the revenue that pays for those services will disappear overnight. Now, the tax doesn't expire until January 1st of next year, of 2015, but the General Assembly and the governor are bound by our state's constitution and by law to only pass a budget for the coming fiscal year based on the available known revenue. So yes, could we come back and do this later? Yes, we could come back, and we still have time between now and January 1st. But any budget that they pass during the current session, which is the main thing that we're working on right now, is to come up with a budget that will kick in July 1st. If we don't extend the tax increase before the end of legislative session at the end of May, then the budget that the legislature has to pass has to match the available revenue, meaning that they have to pass a budget that assumes a $2.4 billion reduction in money. So the budget, so that everything really does hinge on the legislature passing the extension of that tax increase, so that we can do a budget that, at a very minimum, maintains the current level of services and programs for families. So to give you an idea of what some of the conversations in Springfield are happening around what those cuts look like in a very real way for families and citizens across the state, the projected cuts, and we'll focus on early childhood because that's kind of what we do, 23,000 families and 41,000 children are estimated to lose access to the Child Care Assistance Program because of the lack of revenue and across-the-board cuts that would happen. 32,000 child care providers could close their doors to families because of enrollment issues, because the fact that they live in communities where families need child care but need it and can only access it through the Child Care Assistance Program, which they will lose access to. So huge ripple effects, as you can see, in the child care field. $18 million cut to Preschool for All is estimated. Oh. And no, it's not working. Hold on, I'm trying to advance your slide. Hold on just a second. All right, there we go. So an $18 million cut to the Preschool for All budget is estimated, which would deny 6,000 more children, remembering that we've received significant cuts to the Preschool for All program already through this recession, but an additional 6,000 more children will lose access to that high-quality early childhood program. To-home visiting, a $4.1 million cut is estimated, and that would trigger the state to pay back to additionally have to pay back $31 million in federal funding. So right now, Illinois receives a federal grant. One of the conditions or stipulations of that grant is that we cannot reduce our state investment during the time which we pull down those federal monies. If we cut our home visiting program by $4 million, that will trigger the state having to repay the federal government $31 million. So a little, a $4 million cut triggers a $35 million loss to the state in terms of revenue to pay for services. And a $12 million cut to early intervention services for children, which would happen through a changing the eligibility threshold so that many, many, many more children will not qualify based on new and higher income thresholds. So again, devastation across the field for early childhood. The cuts, the hole that will be blown in our budget for this coming year, again, $2.4 billion. That hole gets bigger in subsequent years because the tax reduction is being staggered. So our tax rate will eventually go back down to a flat 3%, and so that's going to happen over a number of years. And so the hole is only going to get bigger in terms of what revenue we can generate at that reduced tax level to serve programs and serve families. So when the governor made his budget address in early March, there was a doomsday budget which really laid out the scenario that I've pointed to in terms of early childhood and across-the-board education, etc. But he also then said, but if we can get together, work together, and look for the best interest of Illinois, and extend this tax increase until our economy is robust enough to either, support it with a lower tax rate, or that we make that tax rate permanent. I should say that Illinois really does have one of the lowest tax rates across the country, and we're one of about 6 or 7 states that still has a flat tax, meaning that we tax all incomes at the same percentage income, which we believe and many argue is in the most unfair way to create a taxation system. So the governor presented a doomsday budget, but he also presented what was called the governor's recommended budget. And this is premised on the fact that we would extend this tax level of 5% across the board on the personal income tax. And so he would extend the current income tax rate. He would invest those resources in human services and education at current levels, but also increasing levels. This was the first year that the governor actually introduced a 5-year budget so that it could really be what he called a visionary budget to say, this is where we want to take our state and this is how we're going to get there. It provides property tax relief, so the governor said we're going to maintain these higher income levels, personal income tax levels, but we know that families struggle under property tax, and so we will provide relief in that category. And this is a very active conversation in Springfield right now, really doubling the earned income tax credit that really lifts up the lowest wage working families in Illinois. There's a federal earned income tax credit, and then Illinois also has a state earned income tax credit based on a percentage of the federal, and that is a refundable tax credit, and that is something that we are actively engaged in and working to push through the General Assembly as we speak. So there is the doomsday budget, which we hope everybody, as we did, kind of shudder at the thought of what that would mean for Illinois families and what the long-term impact would be on our state's economy. But then at the same time, the governor introduced a recommended budget that says, but this is what we could be and this is what we could do if we extend this tax increase. So again, with the recommended budget for human services specifically, there is in the governor's proposed budget a $166 million increase to child care, which would maintain current length caseloads, accounts for parents choosing higher quality settings. So again, what we see is more and more families are choosing school readiness programs, center-based care, and so those are more expensive types of care, and the governor's budget assumes that we're going to be paying more because more families are choosing a more expensive type of care, which is the trend that we've been seeing for the last number of years. And it also, once again, provides rate increases to home providers, and also builds in there a little bit of increase for centers in terms of potentially some quality improvements and rate increases. And then there is an $8 million increase to early intervention, again, over the number of years, because we are really doing a lot of outreach, because we know that we have done a good job at educating families in terms of the role that early childhood education plays in lifelong success. We actually see more children entering early intervention, and we also see them accessing multiple types of services at the same time. So really coming out of those programs stronger and really ready for success in school, or preschool when they're 3 and school when they're 5. So human services clearly will get a boost with the governor's proposed budget. Specifically, the child care investments will be significant. The State Board of Education, as you probably know, or as a parent or as a citizen, but also as an education advocate for young children, education has really taken its hit over the last number of years, along with all other services and supports for families and children. So we work hand in hand with our education advocates to make sure that we continue to invest in education, and we try and get back some of what we've lost over the years. And the early childhood program, the Preschool for All program, is housed in the State Board of Education. We've received $80 million of cuts over the last 5 years. We have been working for the last couple of years to try and get some of that back, to start reinvesting in those young children. And so in the governor's recommended budget, $25 million will be restored to the early childhood block grant. And again, that's trying to chip away at that $80 million that we've lost over the last 5 or 6 years. There is an $11 million increase to bilingual education proposed in the governor's preferred budget, and $100 million of a proposed $1.5 billion investment in the governor's Birth to 5 initiative. And that really is that 5-year vision to say that we really have to think long-term about this, that Illinois is, as you know, a race to the top state. there's lots of energy and effort and thinking going into building a higher quality early childhood system. And so when the governor really kind of talked about early childhood in his speech and in his budget proposal, he really talked about that what we're doing has got to all start to feed into building a stronger system for children. And so making significant investments is part of that work. Right now we have the luxury to have some federal money that we're pulling down to do some of this planning and to really look at our state and to really think about the pieces that need to be shifted or developed in order to build a stronger system where all children are served. And so the governor recognizes that over the years we're also going to have to start to invest additional general revenue dollars or state dollars into that system. So this is all a bit of a backdrop. We have lots of information on our website around this, and so we wanted to do a call today just to give you a sense of urgency. I think a lot of you have been involved in the A Better Illinois campaign, which is a campaign to amend our state's constitution to move from a flat tax to a progressive tax that really is much more fair, particularly for lower income working families, in terms of that we tax lower income families at a lower rate and higher income families at a higher rate. That seems fair. Unfortunately, the General Assembly was not able to take action on that initiative by the deadline of May 4th. And so that, for this General Assembly and for this election cycle, that initiative is dead. And so now the complete focus has absolutely got to be on the 5% in terms of maintaining that 5% level of the individual tax rate, so that we're not completely decimating programs and services that families rely on. We should also always note, and for those of you who run programs, you know this better than anybody, but for those of you who run households, we know this as well. To do the same thing from year to year costs more. So we could do the exact same thing in terms of driving the same amount of mileage on our car to and from work every day, and chances are that costs more this year than it did last year because gas is more expensive. We eat the same bowl of cereal every morning, but it costs us more this year because I'm paying more for a gallon of milk than I did last year. And so not only do we need these investments and that maintained tax rate to maintain to make additional investments over time, but we need additional dollars always to just maintain services. So it is a constant uphill struggle, and so we really are trying to implore upon the General Assembly that this is a critical time, that we have to take action, and that it really is for the best of the families that they represent in Springfield, the best of the long-term health of the economic health of our state, and it is just the right thing to do for children to extend the tax increase at the 5% level. Preferably make it permanent. This is the rate that we should be at to support the services and the programs and the families that Illinois should be answering to. But at a minimum, we have to maintain that adequate level of revenue through the coming year in order to maintain services and avoid disaster. So, as always, this time of year, we are really imploring upon all of you to be the strong advocates that I know you are in your districts and in your state and your families and your communities, to really reach out and contact your legislators. Again, we have fact sheets on our website, actforchildren.org, and we are doing lots of in-district work in terms of working with some of you, and our community engagement associates might have called some of you already to ask specifically to do some work in your district, but we're asking every legislator needs to be contacted. Every legislator needs to hear from the constituents in their district that you support extending a tax increase. This is an election year. We have to be very conscious of the timing of this. It's a hard time for legislators to go out on an issue that pretty much everybody is raised in this country to hate taxes and to think that they're bad. Taxes are the funding source for this state. It is how we fund education. It is how we pave roads. It is how we pay for libraries. It is how we fund child care, early intervention, preschool for all, and all other programs that children and families rely on. And we have to remind them that taxes are not bad, that we think that supporting families is the most important thing, and that we need to work together to figure out the revenue sources to do that. So we're asking everybody to, now more than ever, to reach out to your legislators, to tell them that you support an extension of the tax increase, that you think that we've made promises to families in Illinois, and that the best way to keep those promises is to extend the tax increase. We are going to be sending out pretty consistent alerts. You might be getting some from us. You'll get some from other early childhood advocacy organizations. You'll be getting them from organizations across the board if you're on their mailing list, because everybody is really in lockstep. If they serve children and families, developmentally, children with developmental delays, adults, seniors, anybody who is providing services to any segment of the society will get decimated if we don't have this tax increase. So we really need to act together and act quickly, and don't think just because you called once that you're done. Call again and call again. We still have about 18 days left of the General Assembly, less actually, and so we really do want to ask you to reach out and to explain this to your staff, to know that if you're a child care resource referral, you can absolutely call your legislators and to say, I think what we do for Illinois families is a good thing by providing child care, by having schools that matter, by having high-quality preschool with a certified teacher. Those are all good things, and we need to maintain the revenue that allows us to continue to do that. We're not asking you to talk about a specific bill number. We're not asking you to lobby. We're asking you to be good advocates for the children and families you serve and for the communities in which you live, and for the long-term health and economic viability of our state. We've all invested a lot. We all have a stake in this. And so really it's about being a good advocate. It's not about being a lobbyist. And so whether you work for a resource referral agency, whether you're running a program, whether you're a family child care provider, this is what we do. You and your staff should absolutely be doing this. You should absolutely do it as a citizen. Go to your local library and gin up some support. Talk about it at your church, at your local PTA, at your year-end school events. Everybody is going to feel this if we can't pull it out and actually extend the current revenue. So that's kind of where we are. We are going to be sending out a letter to the editor. We really want you to act both as a personal, citizen of Illinois, but also as a professional in the early care and education field. Please visit our website, www.actsforchildren.org. There we have an action center that gives you very clear information and instructions, and is just a good resource. We try and be very diligent. We're trying to get better at making sure that it's always updated. We are also now, in the social media world of Facebook and Twitter. So if you have not liked us, please do. And so there's lots of things that you can be doing without going to Springfield. I will say that there is a rally that's being organized on May 22nd in Springfield for folks to rally around supporting an extension of the tax increase. And so if people are interested in going to Springfield, the 22nd of May would be a great day to plan an outing. It's a rally at 1 o'clock, so it gives you plenty of time in the morning to get there. That is not necessarily a rally that we're organizing, but it is a coalition or a almost an impromptu group of social service organizations that are really trying to get their folks there on the same day to really show support to the General Assembly, to say, you have cover. This is the right thing to do. This is the best thing to do for Illinois families. So we're happy to take questions, comments. You can type your things in. I think Christine is managing any questions that are going to come in. If you have any questions about the revenue source, about what it would mean to get the cuts, what the timing is, as you all know, the legislature has to adjourn by May 31st. There's a sense that they might try and finish a couple of days early because there is high school and college graduations that there are known. We know that some legislators will be out of town, and so we won't have a full voting body on the 31st, and so the hope is to actually finish a couple of days earlier, and so that is yet to be seen. But so time is definitely ticking, and there's a lot at stake.
So, Ceci, there are a couple of questions that I'm going to kind of paraphrase into one, and then if people can look on the right-hand side of your screen, if you do want to submit a question, you can do so by submitting it through that question function, and we'll see it and respond to it. So there are a couple of questions around what we know about how the vote looks specifically in the House. We know that the Senate is a little bit more secure. In the House, there's a question of whether or not there are the votes. So the questions are really about who should we be targeting, and I know we're not going to be sending out any target lists, but I didn't know if you wanted to address how the vote is looking in the House?
So we're working on a roll call. That is absolutely something that we're trying to do with other folks. And that roll call simply means that we're trying to talk to all the members of the House. Senator Cullerton said, President Cullerton in the Senate has said that he feels sure that he could muster up the votes in the Senate, but that they will not start a bill that will extend the tax increase, that bill needs to start in the House. The House, as you know, is a much larger body and always a little bit less predictable than the Senate. The majority that the Democrats hold in the House is slimmer than it is in the Senate as well, so that also makes the challenge a little bit greater in the House. So unlike the fair tax where we needed a supermajority, we needed 71 votes in the House, we only need 60 votes to pass this bill. And so we feel strongly, we feel hopeful and confident that we can get to 60, but we're not at 60 at all. And so I would say at this point, and the folks that we have in our yes column, not all of them are 100% yes. And so my response is everybody needs to be contacted, everybody needs to be called. You can, you know, and I think that the more that they hear, the stronger they are. And once somebody becomes a strong yes, they don't want to be out on a limb by themselves. So then that they then become an advocate to try and talk to some of their peers and colleagues on the floor, on the House floor, to also support the initiative. So I would say that everybody needs to be contacted. Everybody, it sounds crazy to say that it's early enough, but unfortunately it is, because when this starts to happen, it happens pretty quickly. And so this is a critical week, which is why we chose today to come to you. But really, every legislator, particularly your House members, need to be called. And I would also say that we would love for this to not be a partisan issue. That, you know, whether your rep is a Democrat or a Republican, we would love to see bipartisan support, because at the end of the day, Republican and Democratic kids all rely on child care. We don't ask their party affiliation when they walk in the door. We know that families struggle and work hard and want the best for their children, regardless of their party affiliation. And so we're really hoping, and so we're not, you know, dedicating all of our time and energy just to the Democratic caucus. We are talking to every member of the General Assembly. And if you have, you know, 2 state reps that, based on the families you serve and the district you cover, call both state reps. Call your senator. Call everybody who has a affiliation with your program or the families you serve, and tell them that you support it. Because right now it's early enough that we don't have a strong roll call, and so we need to cover all of our bases.
Thanks, Ceci. There's a couple of questions, just more technical questions, about whether the slides will be available. And yes, they will be. We'll post them to our website, as well as a recording of this webinar. So if you know anyone who wasn't able to participate today live, you'll be able to do that at your convenience following the webinar. I don't have any other questions in our queue, so if you've got a burning question, you can get it in real quick. If not, as Ceci said, our information is posted on our website in terms of current action alerts and fact sheets. But as always, if you need some help either crafting your message or whatever you might need in order to take some action, we're here to support you. So please get in touch with us. All of our contact information is listed on the website under the Advocate drop-down menu. It says Meet the Team, and you can get directly in touch with any one of us on the public policy team.
And if anybody's interested in going to Springfield for the rally, there is assistance in terms of buses are being supplied in areas where we can fill a bus. So if you think that you can gather 50 folks and go to Springfield to rally in support of revenue, to support children and families, please give us a call or send us an email, and we can help connect you with the organizers, the folks who are handling the bus situation. It's kind of last minute, but we were able to get a date and felt like it was worth the effort. There'll be a number of activities between here and the end of session that were already planned that will also have a focus on revenue, but this is a rally that we are organizing or helping organize and drive people to Springfield. Figuratively, not literally. I'm not driving people to Springfield on the 22nd. But definitely, if you feel like you can pull some people together and want to go, please let us know, because we'd love to help you get there. And I think that if we don't have any more questions, I think that we are done, and don't want to take up more of your time today than we have to, and definitely want you to have enough time to pick up your phone and dial your state legislators before the day's end to tell them that you do support an extension of the current tax rates of 5% in support of children and families. So we thank you so much for taking time out of what we know is a very, very busy day. And we hope to see you soon, and we hope to hear from you, and more importantly, we hope your legislators hear from you. So thanks, everybody. Have a great afternoon.